today on an all-new Dr. Phil. Actor Gary Busey.
No! Hey! Tour over!
His struggle with addiction.
You snorted your dog?
Cocaine got all over her, so what do? You go snort the dog.
Don't ever do cocaine!
His near-fatal accident.
This was a serious accident. You underwent brain surgery, right?
Split my skull up to here, knocked a hole in it that big.
They don't know what his brain has been through.
His compelling interview.
Went to the other side, had a spiritual awakening.
You encountered the Grim Reaper.
I heard, relax. It's not your time to go.
And his life now.
I've been clean for 25 years.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Academy Award-nominated actor took Hollywood by storm in films such as the Buddy Holly Story, Lethal Weapon, Point Break, and Under Siege. But Gary Busey has also made headlines for multiple arrests and a motorcycle accident that caused a traumatic brain injury, leaving him known more for his off-camera antics than his blockbuster films. Now, some of these antics were captured by TMZ.
Busey's acting career dates back to 1971. He received an Oscar nomination for the 1978 film, The Buddy Holly Story.
No performance Gary Busey has ever given is as heartfelt as the real-life drama he is living now.
Actor Gary Busey is in critical condition after being thrown from his motorcycle in Culver City, California.
Gary Busey is at Cedars-Sinai Hospital after brain surgery.
If you put that straitjacket on me, I'm going to pull your endocrine system out of your body and make a hat out of it.
Actor Gary Busey is hospitalized tonight after suffering an apparent cocaine overdose.
Saying that my mate, Gary Busey, OD'd on cocaine.
Hey!
What kind of tomatoes?
Stop it right now!
I'm bleeding a little bit, and that's good. You know, it's good to drink your own blood.
Busey appeared in court this week pleading his case after a much-publicized drug overdose.
My drug of choice was cocaine, and that's really a tricky little monster.
Meet Mr. Joshua. It's made Gary Busey Hollywood's comeback of the year.
Another Hollywood marriage is on the rocks. Gary Busey has been arrested and turned in by his wife.
You didn't pay $50,000
I said no. I said no.
Are you sure?
I said no.
More trouble for actor Gary Busey. The actor has been arrested on suspicion of misdemeanor battery charges.
Actor Gary Busey will not face charges for hitting a pedestrian. The 70-year-old was backing out of a parking space in a shopping center.
Finish the watering here.
Okay, sure.
Oh, why should we trust you?
If you don't trust me, you're going to get hit.
Who's a pig, huh?
What do you guys want?
It's the shot of you leaving, right?
What do you guys want?
It's the shot of
I'm not leaving anywhere.
What are you doing? I'm shooting. Oh.
Well, actor Gary Busey is once again in the news with his new autobiography, Buseyisms, where he shares his ups and downs of almost 50 years in Hollywood and surviving a drug overdose.
Hey, the book is my life. I took the curtains of my life and opened them up for everyone to see. What happened to me after the Buddy Holly Story in 1979, a fella showed up at my door dressed like a Beverly Hills cowboy. And had a Tiffany ring box this big, opened it up, big rock of cocaine with my initials on it. I got addicted to cocaine. On December the 4th, 1988, I went off a motorcycle without a helmet, hit my head, traumatic brain injury.
Actor Gary Busey is in critical condition after being thrown from his motorcycle in Culver City, California.
I went to the other side, had a spiritual awakening. Life is so important and it's so quickly taken from you. There's no death. It's just a passing to another plateau. On May the 3rd, 1995, I OD'd, have a stomach pump, felt liquid coming out of my mouth.
Actor Gary Busey is hospitalized tonight after suffering an apparent cocaine overdose.
I realized I'd been dancing with the devil for 8 years and he'd been leading. So I left the dance circle. Adios. I'm standing in front of Native American art that I'm part of because I'm Native American. All of these little guys up here are called kachinas. Stephanie?
Yes, sir.
Could you come here, please? I have a gift for you.
Okay. Oh.
This is a Native American heart pouch.
That's beautiful.
Stephanie is a soulmate. We have been together 32 lifetimes. We have an incredible opposites attract connection. Play an A chord. Luke came into this atmosphere on February 23rd, 2010. Such a special gift from heaven. Children, #1 in my life. And LOVE stands for Living on Victorious Energy.
Hey, today!
One great thing about the traumatic brain injury, it put me in better touch with my truth of myself. Life is a flower, and honey is the love that flows through it.
Well, you know, for me, this is one of the most talented, interesting, and enigmatic people in Hollywood. Please welcome actor Gary Busey. Some fans in the house, my friend.
Sir, I do. And I'm a big fan of yours.
Well, have a seat.
This is
Same
great.
here.
This is great.
Yeah.
I have a personal signing to a book especially for you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. I will treasure this. Thank you. I appreciate that.
This book is me pulling back the curtains of my life and letting everyone see and feel my everything.
So why'd you decide to do that?
I have a thing called Buseyisms, where I take the letters that spell a word and create a new definition for the word. Like the Buseyism for the word nuts, N-U-T-S. That stands for never underestimate the spirit. So the Buseyisms are a lifting word to your spirit, your mental, emotional, and physical bodies that you have in you.
Yeah, you see, we filled the screen up with them here.
Hey!
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. They're all true. That's the
Yeah.
good thing about it. It's all true.
Yeah.
And the word truth, that stands for taking real understanding to heart.
I got to tell you, that's pretty good. That's
well,
pretty
coming
good.
from you, bud. That's my truth speaking.
Well, let me read a quote from your book here. This is in chapter 11, page 54. You say, after 29 years, it felt good to finally have Dad express interest in something I had to say. It felt like a father and son reborn. Dad finally accepted me.
Yeah. That was when I went to California in 1966 with a rock and roll band from Oklahoma State University. And we played and made a deal with Epic Records. Got in the movies, got in the TV. Never planned on it, never wanted to do it, but I did it. Trained by a man named James Best, who taught me camera technique and film awareness. But I majored in theatrical arts, so I knew the classical theater. Okay. In my life, where I took the direction I took, my dad didn't grasp it. And he came out and met me when I was doing a TV series. And I remember Valerie Harper looked at my dad and mother and looked at my dad and said, now I know where Gary gets his good looks. That made my dad feel so good. That was so good to me. Yeah. He accepted me. He loved me. There's my dad and I. It was like the hardships in the front. That's okay. He was military.
How did you prepare to play the role of Buddy Holly? Because that was a really iconic role.
I didn't. There I am, playing Buddy. It was a baptism and a birth at the same time into the business of art, motion pictures, and the business of my truth. Because that was me not acting when I played Buddy Holly.
Right. You said that you did not feel surprised, scared, or overwhelmed when you were nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor.
Yeah, I just wasn't. I just had a feeling in my heart that no matter what happens with the awards, the Oscar is nothing, because my award was being chosen to play Buddy Holly.
Right.
Heartbeat, why do you skip when my baby touches me? That's Buddy.
Yeah.
And I got the part.
You actually performed with Bruce Springsteen and the East Street Band, right?
Yeah. The incredible amount of energy. When you're playing rock and roll music, and it's Buddy Holly, and I'm getting to do it, I'm all over the place. There's pictures in the book, picture of the book of me and Bruce singing together on a Buddy Holly song called Rave On.
So you were all over the place the first night?
Yeah, I'm all over the place pretty much in my life.
Yeah. Got that. Kind of like this interview, right? We'll find out what happened that led actor Gary Busey snorting cocaine off of his dog after the break. We'll be right back.
You go snort the dog. But you don't just get cocaine, you get little fleas and bugs. And...
I had to ask. And later, you hypnotized Gary.
Without him really knowing he was being hypnotized, I hypnotized him and I gave him a mantra to release, relax, and let go.
That works, too.
Tomorrow,
don't you turn the channel.
a controversial issue
This wouldn't have happened if I wasn't black.
that can't be ignored.
This woman was falsely accused.
Discrimination is not just
Please
simply...
don't tell me what discrimination is.
It's time
White privilege is a real thing.
We are constantly blamed and shamed for being white.
for straight talk.
If we're gonna change this, you ladies, you white women, you gotta listen.
That's tomorrow. Then, on Friday, she lost her parental rights.
Your grandchildren were dropped off in the middle of the night with just a Post-it note.
They need me to take care of them because you are not.
That's Friday.
Buseyisms have been coming through me. I don't make them up, they just come through me. I'm a messenger. NUTS. That stands for never underestimate the spirit. You have to do yoga, or go out on the balcony and fart or burp. You can do it in the presence of all of us because we're all on the same team. And the word team, T-E-A-M, stands for together, everyone achieves more.
We made a Buseyism out of it. First, love yourself.
That's Luke. That's the Busey.
As actor Gary Busey's star continued to rise in Hollywood, so does his dangerous behavior. He says in his autobiography, Buseyisms, the addict inside of him was unleashed one night after a man who called himself the Devil showed up at his door dressed like a Beverly Hills rodeo clown with a little blue box containing a chunk of cocaine with his initials engraved in the middle. I didn't even know you could do that.
Well, I can't.
Yeah. But that was the beginning.
There's a rock about that big.
You actually snorted cocaine off your dog?
Oh, yeah.
How do you
That's
get
what an addict does.
So tell me about that.
Okay, I came in the house, took off my little windbreaker, flipped it out, and 2 bindles of cocaine, like in a wrapper, came out of my coat and hit the floor. My dog, Chili, started rolling. The bindles of the cocaine got all over her. So what do? When you're an addict, you go snort the dog. And that's what I did. But you don't just get cocaine, you get little fleas and bugs and little things of the hair. It's a potpourri.
I had to ask. You said cocaine became your hero. What do you mean?
Cocaine was my everything. Cocaine was my family and my career and everything in my life ran a distant second.
Right.
Cocaine was here. And I OD'd, finally. I remember the hospital laying on the bed, stretched out like this with a tube in my throat that big, breathing. And I felt liquid come out of my eyes, my nose, and my mouth, where they were pumping my stomach. And I got May the 3rd, 1995 was my last OD. It was when I OD'd on cocaine. I've been clean for 25 years.
You had it at that point.
Tour over.
So that was it. Now, after that accident, after your accidental overdose, you were actually facing felony charges. Why?
Felony charges? I was?
Yeah. For drug possession.
Well, explain that to me, Lucy.
Well, apparently you had a lot of cocaine when you overdosed. I guess were arrested with enough that it was a felony.
Well,
I don't think they prosecuted you for it.
No, they didn't, but they did that. I had cocaine things in my pocket. Whoa! Don't ever do cocaine!
Okay.
It will kill you. I am an experienced one in that. Okay, no. Better than doing cocaine is go to Knott's Berry Farm naked. That's when you can have fun.
Yeah. So, did you try that too?
No, not yet. You want to go?
Knott's Berry Farm right now is adding security. They're looking for us to show up. I'm telling you. That would put people on cocaine. All right. Next, we're going to meet Gary Busey's wife and find out why what she discovered about her husband while writing his autobiography with him. You're going to like this woman.
Gary is eccentric. I feel like everyone has misjudged him. And everyone has a preconceived idea of who Gary is. And they don't know what he's been through. They don't know what his brain has been through. I'm honestly sick of it.
And later,
I ran around the corner going 40 miles an hour without a helmet. Split my skull up to here, knocked a hole in it that big.
And doctors gave you like a 2% chance of survival.
Coming up next Thursday, it's Dr. Phil's Scam Week.
It's happened to you once, it's happened to you twice, but you get her pregnant again.
He claims his wife put 8 of their children up for adoption without him knowing.
She's having babies and putting them on the market, and you didn't figure that out.
Now,
You took my innocence. You took my trust for men.
his children want answers.
I feel like my mom sold me like a piece of furniture.
I believe they just wanted money, and I just want him to admit that.
Plus, a marriage therapist believes she's in a relationship
You're sending this money to somebody you've never met.
with actor Jeffrey Dean Morgan,
He told me he was putting the money aside to leave his wife.
who's really behind the scam. And then she pretended to have a firefighter husband,
None of that's true.
No.
collecting thousands in donations.
What'd you do with it?
I donated as much as I possibly could.
And now
You've had 7 fake pregnancies.
she's about to face off
She was claiming that your son was her child.
She is a disgusting human being.
with the woman she lied to.
Let's bring her in.
It all begins next Thursday.
Stephanie, she is so good for me and moderating my behavior. She's a beautiful partner in every way. Even though we do butt heads a few times, but that's just another visual of our love together.
Well, Academy Award nominated actor Gary Busey says his wife Stephanie is not only his soulmate, but a replica of an angel that came to save him. Now, Stephanie says that Gary came to the beauty shop where she worked several times, but on his 3rd visit, he noticed her, and one thing led to another, and here they are almost 11 years later.
You know, people say, what's Gary like? I'm like, Gary's Gary. That's it. What you see is what you get. He goes to the beat of his own drum. It's a very loud drum most of the time. He's a hoot. Very challenging. He'll challenge you on every little thing.
In what way?
Just anything.
Name a challenge I've given you in the last 4 hours.
Gary is eccentric. Gary's an underdog.
I'm individual. I'm completely individualistic.
Gary's an interrupter. No, I'm just kidding. I feel like everyone has misjudged him. And everyone has a preconceived idea of who Gary is. And they don't know what he's been through. They don't know what his brain has been through. I'm honestly sick of it. Since I wrote his book and knowing his whole life story, I learned a lot about Gary. His life is so fascinating. He's told me so many stories of just all of the successes he'd been through. I didn't know this at the time, but that a little bit of an underdog, and I was an underdog, and I just related to him very much. I felt like there was so much kindness, but a lot of gobbledygook on top of that we just needed to get to the center of it. It's really hard to get him to talk about growing up with his dad. I feel like he was raised to feel like he was a mistake, and so anytime he would achieve success, he would create some sort of thing to bring it down. And
hey, Dad.
How are you?
Good.
He and Luke are like buddies,
I'm the best
buddies.
dad in the world. I have a trophy and a picture of me and Luke. Prove it. Luke!
Well, Gary says you calm him down, so I wanted to get you right out here. No, really, I'm so glad that you're here. So tell me, how did you know Gary was the right man for you?
It's very interesting you asked that. We became friends at first. And one day I was rollerblading, and I was thinking about how my age and how I wanted to have a family, and because I was like 39, and I thought, well, he probably doesn't want to have a family. And I came back from rollerblading that day, and I told him what I wanted, and he was like, no hesitation, let's have a kid.
You're a very gentle spirit with Luke.
Yes, I am.
And he's obviously very loved and a very delightful young man.
Oh,
congratulations to both of you on having such a wonderful son. So you hypnotized Gary.
One time, though, when we were in a small confined space, he was having a little bit of anxiety about a lamp that made him think about being in the hospital with his brain surgery. So without him really knowing he was being hypnotized, I hypnotized him and I gave him a mantra to release, relax, and let go. And that's been his mantra ever since.
Right.
That works, too.
So what did you discover about him when you were writing the book with him?
He had so many great behind-the-scenes stories of his movies, like the fact he didn't have the part in Lethal Weapon. It was already cast. He had come up with the idea himself to kill the captain in Dragon Under Siege. He had all these great creative ideas, and I wanted to get those stories in, but then I also wanted it to be very deep, and I wanted people to know, because he'd been telling me all the time about the abuse he had from his father, physical, mental, emotional, and I wanted to get those stories in, and that was very difficult for him because he didn't want to, he felt like he was letting his dad down by really not always saying, I love him, I love him, I love him, and I wanted him to just go deep, and at first it was...
how much my dad did love me.
Yes, he did love you.
Dad raised us like we were in the Navy. Up, two, dip. I went to bed every night at 8:30 till I was graduated from high school.
Was that regimented?
Yeah, and I had a trundle bed, where there's a bed about this high, and then under the bed you pulled out from my little brother. Well, I ran down the hall and, airborne, bam, hit the trundle bed goes, boom. So my dad said, you'll sleep in that for 2 weeks. So I slept there like a half upright mummy. It was okay, I've survived that.
Actor Gary Busey says after his near-fatal motorcycle accident, he had an apparition of the Grim Reaper. We're going to find out what he says this Grim Reaper had to say to him when we come back.
Yay! There's an apparition about this high, with a big hood, and the voice that came out of him was, relax, it's not your time to go.
Well, the book is Buseyisms by Gary Busey, and it's basic instructions before leaving Earth. And Hollywood actor Gary Busey says his career was on an upswing when he got into a near-fatal motorcycle accident. This was a serious accident, right?
Well, yeah. Most accidents are. I ran around the corner going 40 miles an hour without a helmet, and fishtailed the bike, threw me up and over, hit the curb at Washington Robertson, split my skull up to here, knocked a hole in it that big. The guy at Bartell's motorcycle shop ran over, took my gloves off, stuffed them in the crack of my head, And then paramedics came. They're only 1 block away. And I landed at the feet of a police officer scouting the route of the marathon race Monday, the next day. So boom, 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 boom. It's the speed with where you get to the OR that's going to save you with a traumatic brain injury, which that was what I have. Deja vu is when your mind picks up information before your brain does, and your mind tells you that first. Then when your brain catches it, it's like, oh, I've been here before. I had what you call vuja days, which was like, I said, this is a vuja day, because I'd seen things I'd seen before, but it was like it was the first time I was seeing them. Very revealing what your body, brain, mind does.
I have no idea what you just said.
Welcome to my world, Dr. Phil.
But you underwent emergency brain surgery, right?
No, hey.
And it was like 2 hours, and doctors gave you like a 2% chance of survival, right?
So what?
And during that time, you said
sure.
you quit living and you left your earthly body. So tell us what that experience was like.
I passed away after brain surgery. And I was this long and that wide, and that's your soul. And your soul is housed in the column of your spine. That was my essence. And I was in the spiritual realm, the supernatural, surrounded by angels. Angels are balls of light, this big, breathing and shining. You can't look the angel right into the light or you'll go down in your stomach, because the love and the trust and the incredible comfort they give you, angels give you, is your truth. And 3 angels came up to my essence, and this one was Abalone, mother of pearl. And it talked to me in an androgynous voice and thought and said, the direction the voice is so loving and just so loving. You're going in the right direction, you're doing well, but because of your responsibility to mankind, it's time for you to look for help in the spiritual realm. You may come with us now, or return to your body and continue your destiny. It's your choice. I came back to my body, had to learn how to walk, talk, eat, dress myself again for 2.5 months. It was a rebirth physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Well, you said you encountered the Grim Reaper.
Oh yeah, that was in the hospital room after I came out of that unconsciousness. I looked up in the corner of the room, and there was an apparition about this high, size of the ceiling, with a big hood, big robe, and a sickle over his head. And he reached, I saw that apparition reach his hand up to me. Can't see a hand, there's no hand there. Just the sleeve raised up, and the voice that came out of him that I heard in my head was, relax, it's not your time to go. Hey! The sickle spun, he disappeared. I said, yeah, okay, I'm gonna be okay.
So you changed your mind about mandatory helmet laws, right?
Yes.
So did you start backing that?
Oh yeah. In fact, after George Herbert Walker Bush heard me in a press conference, heard the information I gave, invited me to Washington for a White House briefing. I met with a committee called HUD, and I told him about my brain surgery, my accident, no helmet, bike, curb, boom, pow. And that became the language for the Traumatic Brain Injury Act that President Clinton signed in 1996. So I am responsible for that, and that's a great feeling to have.
Next, we're going to meet one of Gary Busey's doctors and find out how he says he is fixing this famous actor's brain. We'll be right back.
It's miraculous. He's doing as well as he's doing. Here's a healthy scan, Gary's scan. There's a big difference. What's going on in his brain?
Dr. Amen is amazing. He's a blessing in our lives. Dr. Amen did this thing on his computer that tells us what part of the brain he can recover. And a lot of it can recover. And already, we've only been working with him for a short while. There's been a lot of improvement. I hadn't seen him pick up his guitar in like 8 years. He's constantly writing again. He's playing music, like a door is open for him. I've been a lot more attentive.
It's the medicine Dr. Amy gave me to take away attention deficit disorder.
It's already been an amazing improvement.
Well, Stephanie says her husband, actor Gary Busey, thought he was going through life perfectly and believed nothing was wrong with his brain after his near-fatal motorcycle accident. But Dr. Daniel Amen says Gary's left frontal lobe, where cognitive skills like impulse control happen, was literally destroyed. Take a look.
I've been working with Gary for a little over 5 months. When he first came to see us, I felt so sad for him. His memory, his judgment, his impulse control were just not good. He was really cognitively impaired. When things don't go quite right, he can be irritable. Boom, can have this flash of temper. Why? What's going on in his brain? If you read Gary's book, he clearly had ADHD as a child. In college, he played center. Offensive linemen have more head trauma. As an actor, he had some issues with drug abuse. Drugs, they damage your brain. He had a tumor in his sinuses. He had his sinuses, your brain's right behind it, radiated. He had a very severe motorcycle accident. He crushed his right skull against the curb. If you hit one side, you can see more damage on the other side. It's called a coup contra coup. That's clearly what we see with Gary. Your brain is very soft, about the consistency of soft butter, and it's housed in a really hard skull. When you have a traumatic brain injury, your soft brain goes up against the ridges in the skull and causes damage, which can then damage your life. These are SPECT scans. Here's a healthy scan, which shows full, even, symmetrical activity. Gary's scan, there's a big difference. When you see the holes, that means seriously low blood flow. It's almost miraculous. He's doing as well as he's doing with a brain that is so seriously damaged.
Let's have a hand.
Well, Dr. Amen, thanks for being here. This really was a profoundly traumatic brain injury.
Gary hurt two really important areas of his brain. His temporal lobes, memory, mood stability, temper control, learning. But the most damage was in the front part of his brain. It's an area called the prefrontal cortex. Focus, forethought, judgment, impulse control, organization, planning, empathy, learning from the mistakes you make.
So what did you find when he first came to your clinic 5 months ago?
So the image on the right, what you're seeing is full, even, symmetrical activity. In Gary's brain, you can see these big holes, and what the holes mean is they're seriously low blood flow. But in the left frontal lobe, it's not low. That area died. And it's amazing, as I've gotten to know Gary and really love Gary, how functional he is, even though one of the most important parts of your brain was seriously hurt.
Yeah, and are there parts of his brain that are taking over some of the functions and he's retraining in those areas?
Yes.
So what have you seen change-wise in him since he started working with Dr. Amen?
First of all, even since the brain injury, he's always remained an amazing actor who's had an amazing memory. He could always remember his lines, and that's always been a blessing, thank God.
Point Break.
Went right back to work after his brain surgery. First movie was Point Break, then all these other blockbusters. So he's always been able to work, which is amazing, thank God. But in the home life, I'd like to say that he is so much more attentive to me, always asking me, what can I do for you? What can I get for you? Whereas before, it was just like his own stuff.
All right, actor Gary Busey says after his near-fatal motorcycle accident in 1988, his then doctor said that if he survived, he would not be as musically talented. Well, we'll find out if he beat those odds next.
What do you love about music?
What makes you feel? What makes you feel emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually? The way it makes you feel with others, the way it makes you feel with yourself, the way it makes you feel with your children. That is the powerful energy I have in my brain for doing what I do, which is performing, art, music. Because your spirit will reveal to you what your truth is deep inside of you when you write and play music.
Academy Award nominee Gary Busey has played with such greats as Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
Leon Russell.
Leon Russell. After his tragic motorcycle accident where he suffered a traumatic brain injury, his doctor said he would not be as musically talented. But his wife Stephanie says she has seen a huge change in Gary since he started seeing Dr. Daniel Amen, and Gary has started working on his music again.
Yeah, I'm working on the music with my godson, who is Teddy Jack Bridges, the son of Leon Russell, who I played drums with and toured with.
So what are you doing with
Music's
him?
coming, music's coming.
What techniques are you using with him to awaken parts of his brain, to increase the plasticity taking over? What are you doing with him?
If you want to keep your brain healthy, or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place, which his was, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind.
Right.
And our team came up with a mnemonic, Bright Minds, and Bright Minds shows us we need to work in all 11 of these areas. So, for example,
part of your brain,
the B in Bright Minds is blood flow. Low blood flow, which he has, is the #1 brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease.
Right.
And you know you have it if you get a scan, but also if you have hypertension, which he had, if you had a stroke, if you're not exercising. And so making sure his hypertension is tightly controlled, getting him to exercise. He's done more of that, critically important.
Lost a lot of weight.
So the D is diabesity. When your blood sugar's high and you're overweight, I published 2 studies that show as your weight goes up, the size and function of your brain goes down, which should scare the fat off anyone.
Yeah.
And so he's lost weight.
Okay,
he's eating better. The T is toxins. It's like smoking is not good for your brain. It shrinks it. I just published a new study on 62,000 scans. The world's largest imaging study. Marijuana prematurely ages the brain, almost worse than anything, which is not popular to talk about. And so it's like, here are the things to do, new learning. Music is part of that. There's a whole list of supplements that helps. And the M part is really important for him. It's mental health challenges. He had ADD from the time he was a child. The stories in the book are hysterical. His mother took the playpen and flipped it over just trying to keep him in. So classically.
Didn't work.
And then I'm like, well, I also have to treat his ADD because if I don't, he won't follow through on the other things.
There won't be compliance. And you talk about a lot of these things in your book, Feel Better Fast and Make It Last. So, guys, there are 2 books here that I promise you will change your life. We're going to be right back, and we're going to find out if actor Gary Busey will ever become 100% better after his traumatic brain injury. We'll be right back. You claim that your doctor started taking you on rounds as part of your recovery, right?
Yes.
And how did that help with your recovery?
Well, it was great. My wife at the time, Judy, said, Gary's an actor, so tell him he's going to play a doctor in his next movie, which I wasn't. There was no movie for me to play a doctor. So they gave me a long white coat and a clipboard, and I went on the rounds with them and talked to the patients, and then I would go through their drawers. I opened the top drawer, and there were socks and underwear in there, just a mess. And I straightened it all out and made it very neat. And that was my first Buseyism. NEAT stands for nice, exciting, and tight.
He's referring to the socks.
So
the balls of socks, right?
Yeah, I balled them up.
Yeah.
Made them look like little puppet heads.
Yeah. Will Gary ever become 100% better?
You know, Gary's amazing. He will continue to get better as long as he puts his brain in a healing environment. The part that's dead in his brain, we don't have the Lazarus treatment yet, you know, to bring the dead back to life. But we can get the struggling tissue around it to be better so that he can continue to be a great actor, a great husband, and a wonderful father.
Will I ever get better after this interview? Is there any hope for me?
Yeah! Your scan is next.
You know what hope? Hope. H-O-P-E is abusivism for hope. H-O-P-E stands for Heavenly Offerings Prevail Eternally.
He actually has a glossary of Buseyisms at the back of the book. And I have to tell you, these are surprisingly thoughtful and profound. You have put your heart and soul into this book, and I really commend you for doing it.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of this book. I want to thank Academy Award nominated actor Gary Busey and his wife Stephanie for being here today. I also want to thank Dr. Amen. Thank you for working with this guy, because he is a treasure and we don't want to lose him. You can pick up a copy of Gary and Stephanie's book, Buseyisms, at bookstores and online. And by the way, everybody in the audience is going home with a copy. We're going to have a lot of reading today, because we're going to give you Dr. Amen's Feel Better Fast and Make It Last. We'll see you next time. Doctor, thank you so much. Gary, thank you so much, man. We see you after. You bet.
Bounce, bounce, all the girlies bounce. Take 'em to my house, turn the party out. Bounce, 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 all the girlies bounce. Take 'em to my house, turn the party out.
You warned me 1,000 times, memories can kill ya, but I didn't hear ya. I thought that I could fly, but woke up on the asphalt. I swear there was the last time. I've always been naive, call it.
Ooh, you know we gon' get it. Ooh, you know we gon' get it. Ooh, you know we gon' get it.